Hey everyone, it's good to see you. My name is Matt Emhoff, and I'm a spiritual and life coach as well as the director of Deeper Ministry. And I am so excited that you are here at the first of many virtual workshops that we'll be doing. And this one is called Identity and Transformation, the Path to Freedom. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you are enjoying the spring weather here in Michigan. We finally are feeling the warmth, and we've got green grass and flowers and leaves coming on the trees, and it just feels like everything is coming back to life. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today is what kind of life are you and I meant for? As Jesus would say, life and life to the full. And what does that look like? And how do we live that kind of life? So I want to start by inviting you to dream with me. Dream with me. Um, Now, when you dream, the idea is not to be so practical. It's not meant to be practical. Our brain goes to strategy and how it's going to work and what it's going to look like, or if it's not going to work and why. And that's fine. We'll get there eventually. But to dream is to be curious and open and ask, what if? What if this could be? Whatever it is we're dreaming about. So dream with me. So I want to start by asking this question. Um, Thinking about Jesus, if he's standing right in front of you and looking in your eyes with compassion, right, in a way that we can see and hear, I believe he is here, right? But we can see and hear his voice, compassion in his eyes, and he says your name. And he says, do you want to get well? Do you want to heal? Right? And if you remember, he asked that question 2,000 years ago. We read about it in the Bible, and I believe he's still asking that question to us today. Do you want to be healed? Okay. And to answer that question, you would also have to think about what is it do I want to be healed from? That I want to be healed from, right? And if you're like me, you have a list of maybe 100 things. But let's think about that one thing in your life, in your world, specific to you, that if that thing was healed, if that thing was deleted from your life, or at least the impact was no longer there, how would that be different? Right? Dream with me. What if that was healed? What if that was gone? Right? Wouldn't that be so different, so freeing? And it may be something like anxiety or fear or depression. It may be something from your past, like trauma or abuse. It may be broken relationships. You may not know what it is, right? Maybe a feeling or just a struggle, something that keeps you down. But what if that was healed? And if we've done any of this kind of work at all, then we may have thought about what we want to be healed from. But what we almost never do is think about what do we want to be healed into? Right? We kind of know what we want to be set free from, but what do we want to be set free into? And in my opinion, we don't talk about that enough. We don't think about that enough. So dream with me, okay? Dream with me. And what I'd like you to do is, as I continue to talk, I'd love for you to write a word or a phrase or a sentence that comes to mind in the meeting group chat. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a chat box you can open up and just write a word or a phrase, right? Could be freedom, could be joy, could be I would feel just peace in my heart or anything like that. Just write some things down as we continue to dream so that we kind of have some ideas from each other and kind of get this connection going with each other in this workshop. And so dream with me as you think about in your emotional world. How would it be different if you were fully healed and fully free? Right? When you wake up in the morning or you go through the day, how would your emotions be different? I feel like we'd still have the full range of emotions as human beings, but how would that be different to be able to navigate those things and actually be healthy in our emotions, be free to feel joy and peace and hope and goodness? What would that be like? What would that be like in our thought life, right? How much time do we spend thinking about stuff? We say, I get stuck in my head, or we worry. Okay. All of our thoughts are going every which way, every direction. And when you have the lies that come up, right? The lies, the temptations, the things that we have to work through, it's exhausting to just even try to fight those things if we fight them. All right. But then sometimes we don't, and that's also exhausting and negative. But what if we didn't have to do that, right? Wouldn't that be different in our thought life? All right, let's keep going. This is good. See you guys putting some things in the chat box. Thank you. Keep going. All right. So as we think about this, dreaming about being fully free and fully healed, what about in our relationship with God? Right? What if we didn't drag all of our wounds and all of our insecurities and all of our assumptions into our relationship with God? How would that be different? Now it's okay. He's okay with all that, right? Because he's a loving and kind and good father. But what if we didn't have to? How would that open up our connection with God? How would that set us free in new ways with God, right? And maybe some of you are married. How would you show up to your marriage different if you're fully healed and fully free, right? Would you be a little more empathetic and caring? Maybe fight for and with that other person instead of sometimes against, and not need to be so reactive to getting our hot button hit or all that, and those types of things. So what about if you're a parent with your children? Would you be a little more patient? Right? A little more kind. Oh, wouldn't it be beautiful as parents, right? To not have to project all of our wounds and pain onto the way we parent our kids, right? And of course, we don't do all of that, right? But man, it impacts sometimes how we interact. How would it be different to show up to our kids in a different way, right? Or in a more full way? And I mean, we could keep going for a long time, right? As a employer or an employee, as a friend, right? How would you show up as a friend differently if you're healed and full, free? How would you show up in just the way you think about yourself, your self-consciousness, your self-perspective? How would we show up differently as a leader? We all have things that we lead and take care of. Some of them are big, some of them are small, but how would we do that differently? And our purpose and our calling. We could go on and on. We could go on and on, right? This is what we were designed for. All right. So thank you guys for writing all this. This is awesome. All right, I'm going to read through some secure. I'd feel more secure, fullness and without lack, joyful, at peace, self-esteem and validation. Yep, fully present in the moment. More prayer, calm, no deadness and trauma healing. Wow. Wow. I mean, that could be really good news, don't you think? That is what we are designed for. God did not put us in a broken world as broken people. He originally put us in Eden as whole and free, naked and unashamed, the Bible says. And that is what we're trying to get back. And I think sometimes we forget this or don't know this, that that's what we're trying to get back, our Eden self. Okay, sometimes we call it a true self or our glory, who we were meant to be, right? Our identity, who we are from the beginning. All right, so I think it'd be helpful to talk about what is identity? What does that actually look like? All right, so God took a part of his own heart and formed you. And he meant something when he meant you. And it's a lifelong journey to discover, what did God mean when he meant me? And it's really one of the biggest deepest psychological questions that we ask, right? Who am I? Right? But right next to it, right with it is, and who is who I am good? Who am I? And is who I am good? And this is really what we call an identity level question. Am I good? And am I loved? Am I seen? And am I known? Am I heard? Am I valuable? Am I accepted? Am I enough? Do I matter? Do I have what it takes? Is John Eldridge's great question from his book, Wild at Heart, right? But there are all these questions that we have, and we ask them subconsciously. And we're designed to ask these questions and designed to get an emphatic, powerful, delighting yes in response. You are loved. You are accepted. You are incredibly valuable. You are wonderful. And not because we earned it or figure out or make it happen or performed or anything else. It's just who you are from the very beginning. And in fact, that's my best definition and how I talk about love, right? Love answers our identity level questions with an absolute, beautiful, wonderful, delighting yes to you. Yes to you. I love Henry Nouwen, and he talks about birthdays. It's a really simple idea, but he says, look, this is one of the only times where we actually celebrate somebody for just existing. Isn't that great? We're not celebrating their birthday because they've achieved something or did anything or made something happen, right? It's just another birthday to say, we're glad you exist. We're celebrating you for you, right? We got 3 kids and they love their birthdays, and we tell them, it's your special day. What do you want to do? You want a party? Do you want a cake, candles, all that kind of thing, right? But it's not conditional on whether, they've performed or did anything right or have it figured out, right? It's just celebrating them. It's a yes to you. And this summer I turned the big 40 years old. It makes me feel old, but my wife doesn't even have to ask me. She knows what I want. She says, hey, Matthew, this summer, why don't we go on a weekend getaway, just the 2 of us? Yes, right. That's what I want. I'm not a big party guy. I'm more of an introvert. I want to spend time with my wife and go to Lake Michigan, enjoy, summer and all that. That sounds awesome because that's me. That's what I want, right? What do you want? Because you matter. You matter. To celebrate somebody for just who they are. It's really what love is, to answer these identity level questions. And it's almost like God knew that we needed to be reminded of this, that we would forget. Because if you remember in the creation story, every day he creates, and at the end of the day, what does he say? He says, it is good. It is good. It is good. That's his thumbprint, his stamp of approval, his yes to what he just created. It's a blessing, right? It's not a curse. It's not oh, it's okay. It's not bad. It's, whatever. It is good. And then on the 6th day, he creates you. He creates me. He creates human beings. And he says, it is very good. Very good. So if you're ever wondering where we come from and if who we are is good, God says it at the very beginning. You are good. You are very good. The crown of his creation. You are very good. Right? Wow. We forget that. We don't know it. We don't believe it. We sometimes don't live that way. You are very good. This is the stock you come from, right? The beginning of the family tree. This is our ancestry. This is from the very beginning. You are very good. And if that's not enough, a few chapters later in Genesis, it says, you're made in God's image, right? And this is what an image does, right? It reflects whatever it's reflecting. Like the moon reflects the light of the sun, right? We're designed to reflect the glory of God. We all have all these worship songs and, ways that we think about God as amazing. And we are the reflection of God then. As amazing, not as amazing as him, of course, but we are amazing if we reflect him, and he's amazing, right? And if God is good, well, then so are you. And if God is loving, then so are you. And peaceful and joyful and creative, right? If God is all powerful and uses his power for good, then maybe you are also powerful and can use your power for good, right? See how that works? That's what a reflection is meant to do. That's what we are meant to do, right? There's that beautiful verse that says, from one degree of glory to another, we are being unveiled, right? To reflect the glory of God, to see, to be revealed, to be like Christ, okay? So here's the deal, though. We know we don't always live this way. That's not how we act or behave or choose or think or feel sometimes, right? And that's the problem. We say, yeah, but look at my life. Look at what I did today. Look how I screwed up. Look how I feel. It's not aligning, right? But the reality is the ability to be who you were meant to be, the ability to be amazing and beautiful and powerful and reflections of God is in you, right? It courses through your veins. You have the muscle and the endurance and all that in you. We just don't always live that way, right? Who we are is always there. How we are, we're getting there, right? Who we are is identity. How we are is transformation. All right. We're trying to get those two to align. All right. So the other thing that we need to know about identity is that we cannot make our identity any better or any worse. Right. And this is a big myth and a miss in our culture. A lot of times we say, oh, we're going to make my identity better. I'm going to change it. I'm going to be somebody else. I'm going to be somebody new. I'm going to start over. And I get what they're saying, but that's transformation. That's conditional. We can do certain things to make it better or make it worse, right? There's a journey in that, and we want to get better, and that's good, but that can't be applied to identity. Identity is meant to be at the unconditional love level. What Jesus came to bring us is unconditional love. We understand conditional love, but unconditional love is applied to our identity. No conditions. You are loved for who you are, period. Right? So we can't make it any better or any worse. And this is both relieving and terrifying at the same time. Right? It's terrifying because we don't believe that. We're not so sure, right, that we're already okay. And so we have to try to prove it or do things to fit in or do things to succeed or anything else. And you're telling me I can't make it any better? Uh-oh. Right. But it's also relieving because what if I didn't have to do all that all the time? Right? We still do things in the world, but it didn't impact my identity so much. And if I can't make it any worse, whew, maybe that's okay. Maybe I'm really okay. Oh, what a relief that would be. I mean, that would probably open up some free time for us if we didn't have to worry about, am I okay? Even if we don't know that's happening subconsciously, we're always asking that question if it's not already settled in our hearts, in our minds, right? Okay. So Brene Brown has this amazing quote, one of my favorites. She says, don't put your identity back on the table for renegotiation. Okay, don't put your identity back on the table for renegotiation because a negotiation is always about value and a renegotiation is trying to get a better value. So God says, this is who you are. I love you. You're amazing. You're great how you are. And we say, well, let me put that back on the table and see if I can get a better price. Maybe I can fit in a little more. Maybe I can earn a little more applause. Maybe I can get a little more status. Maybe I can, whatever those things are. Again, very subconscious, but it's there. Okay. So it gets stolen so quickly, right? This Eden self, what we were designed for, fully free and fully healed, it gets stolen, right? We're just little babies. We're pure. We're whole. We're free. And then life starts to happen. Now, how I say it is our identity is not gone, right? It's not disappeared. It's not over. It's just been covered up by a lot of crap of life, right? So the work is uncovering what's already there. It's not creating or earning or figuring out, right? But uncovering the goodness and the glory that's already inside of you. The immortal diamond, Richard Rohr calls it, right? Because if you uncover that thing, who you really are, you're going to shine and shimmer just because it's who you are and reflect the glory of God, not because you're trying, right? But because it just happens. It's already there. It's how you were designed. So that's the hope. But for a lot of us, there's a lot of crap to get out of the way to be able, right, to become that, to live that way, right? Because what happens is instead of an emphatic, powerful, beautiful, delighting yes to our identity questions, we get a different answer, don't we? In our childhood and growing up and from other people and from experiences and from trauma and all kinds of things, right? And so there's three main negative responses that are devastating to our identity level questions. Okay. So number one is the obvious one, you're not enough. The answer is no to you, right? And this is just an outright attack on your heart, on your glory, on who God made you to be. No, you're not. You don't matter, right? What you want, what you desire, what you need doesn't matter. Everybody else matters more than you, right? This could be through words. This could be through experience. This could be through bullying. This could be through all kinds of things. We get the message, you don't matter. You're not enough. You're not loved. You're not accepted. You're not valuable. And that is devastating to us because this is what we're designed to get a yes for, and instead we're getting a no. Number two is silence. We have disengaged parents or guardians or grown-ups or other people in our lives. And so we're left alone to interpret, right? We're left alone to interpret life and experiences, and that never goes well. Our brains aren't developed enough as children to interpret how we need to understand the goodness of who we are. And so it usually ends up negative. Number three is then we apply the conditions. Instead of unconditional love, it becomes conditional, right? You're only enough if, right? Fill in the blank. You're only enough if you do the right thing, if you're smart enough, right? If you read the Bible or go to church or memorize verses or pray the right way, or, if you are good looking enough and you get the guy and you get the girl, or you get married, or you have kids, or you have a house, or you have status, or you have money, or, fill in the blank for you. We all have them. And some of them we go, no, that's not me, but there's some out there, right? There's some in your story too. We all have these, right? That we attach value and meaning or validation to. That's not a good place to get it. And what happens is subconsciously we chase this. We can't help it. We're designed to get an answer for those questions, right? So subconsciously we chase this like a carrot in front of a horse on a treadmill. We've got to go after it, and we're getting exhausted and it's not working. And even if we do get a nibble of that carrot and get some applause or get some validation and, get into the group or somebody likes us or, whatever else, it's not fulfilling. It's not satisfying. And we got to get up the next day and do it all again, win it again, make it happen again, right? And it is exhausting. It will burn us out. And eventually we'll find that this ladder we're climbing is leaning up against the wrong wall. Okay. And even worse, when we fail, when it doesn't go well, when we're outed and embarrassed and, those types of things, then it's shame and devastation at an identity level. Okay. And so then we have three responses to these no's. Okay. Accepting the answer. Yep. I'm an idiot. I'm no good. You're right. Right. Kind of leads to depressing reality for us. Or number two, hide and shut down. Okay, we just disengage. I don't want to ever try. I don't want to risk anything so I don't get hurt. Right, so we hide. And number three, I'm going to prove it wrong. Watch this. I'm going to make sure I'm great. I'm going to earn that love. I'm going to earn that enoughness. Right, but all these three keep us on the treadmill, and none of them lead to us the glory of who we truly are. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about me and my story. Okay, so I grew up in a pretty good family. It was a Christian home, and I knew I was loved in a lot of ways. And I'm really grateful to my parents because they gave me a better start in this world than they had. And that's really all you can ask of parents, right? Because we can't offer what we have not been given. So as a parent myself, and watching my kids grow up and not wanting to wound them and do all that, right? The thing is, for us parents, we got to do our own work of identity and transformation, right? Because then if we receive it, then it's something we can offer them. Okay. But no parent is Jesus Christ, and no parent can offer all that a child needs to be prepared and, ready for life. And so I have wounds and pain in my life and my story, just like you do. We all do at some level. Okay. So what I know now that I didn't know back then, because I've done some of this work of identity and transformation, The awareness is that I grew up in an environment of legalism and rule following. Okay, kind of the evangelical Christianity of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. There was a lot of tips and techniques, and you better do it right. And the problem was, I was really good at following the rules, not because I liked following the rules, but because I liked what I got, right? The validation of a gold star and way to go, and I'm proud of you. And other parents telling my parents, oh, he's such a good boy. And how did you do that? How can I get my kids to be like him, or, good grades? And I just figured out you just have to find the authority figure in a situation and please them, do whatever they want, right? And then you get the validation. Okay. Now, none of those things are bad. Of course, I want that good connection from my parents. But the problem was we had no context of identity in that brand of kind of religion and Christianity I was brought up, right? Everything was earning, and it was incredibly full of pressure and perfectionism, and you better do it or else, right? And so it felt great when I got that validation, but it was real bad when I screwed up. And I'd get punished, I'd get shamed, I get what is wrong with you, get yelled at, right? And that was pretty devastating. So it made me chase even more. I better not screw up. That fear is a really powerful motivator. It's unhealthy, but it's a powerful motivator, right? It makes you do stuff. And so I built my house of cards, what I call a false self, right? House of cards. This is the way that I thought I had to make life work, becoming something that I really wasn't, to try to earn my value and my worth, right? And so eventually the house of cards falls over because every house of cards falls over. It can't support, if you build it high enough, it can't support what you're trying to make it support. And so eventually I had anxiety and panic attacks and this pressure and became very prideful and just kind of a shell of who I was really supposed to be, but had no idea, right, that I was so off course. And but had a lot of psychological, emotional pain that came with this anxiety. And I remember as a young man, newly married, my wife and I were in a small apartment in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was pacing back and forth on the sidewalk in front of our apartment, crying out to God, really angry with God, saying, God, I am doing all the right things as a rule follower would, right? And it's not working, right? I'm going to church, I'm reading the Bible, I'm praying, I'm doing all the different types of prayer, the cry of the heart prayer and listening prayer and spiritual warfare prayer and healing prayer and having other people pray for me and worshiping and leading worship and doing all these things. And it's not working. It's not healing me. Remember that question we started with, right? Do you want to get well? Do you want to heal? Yeah, I do, but it's not working. And this was one of the first times I'd ever heard God's voice, that still small voice in my heart. And God just said to me with such compassion, Matthew, those things can't heal you. Only I can heal you. Right. And I had a lot to learn in the months and years and even decades to come. Right. But that was kind of erasing the whiteboard and starting again. Because what I didn't understand is that I didn't really know God. I didn't really have a relationship with God. I thought I did. I would have said I did earnestly, honestly. But what I had was a relationship with the rules, with the things. And none of those things are bad. Those are really good things. But when you make them the point, you actually cut God out of the equation. When you try to get your identity from earning, right? There's no other way that it can happen. It's not good. So I didn't know who God was, not really. Didn't have a clear understanding, right? And didn't have a relationship. And at the very same time, I had no idea who I was because I had been trying to be something else for so long, for my life. And I had a really bad relationship with myself, right? Because I was even taught, right, to basically beat yourself up every time you screw up. And that I'm a worthless piece of crap, no good sinner. Oh, what a wretch I am. right? Which I certainly have sin and brokenness and all that, right? But there's this other part that I had no idea of, this glory and goodness and true self. And so this began a decade of what I call the wilderness in my story, in my journey, that was about healing, that was about taking a long walk out of this deep, dark pit of pain and anxiety and fear and being something I'm not. And it was hard. It wasn't fun. It wasn't easy. It's a narrow path, and not a lot of people take it, right? This identity and transformation thing, because you have to face what you've avoided your whole life. You have to face the wounds and pain you have. It's not fun, right? I had a lot of jobs that I didn't like, but they taught me a lot. And I had a lot of people that helped me through the process because you can't do it alone, right? And on and on. So eventually, I'd love to tell you more of my story, right? But the point of all this is saying it gets stolen so quickly. Who I was meant to be and who I became was something very different. And so now the work has been recovering it, right? A geological dig to find this treasure hidden in your heart, who you really are, who God created you to be, okay? So the question becomes then, if it's about uncovering, then how do we get it back? How do we get it back? And is that even possible? Okay, so this analogy may help. Okay, so years ago, my son Nolan was in kindergarten. He came home with this little paper cup with a little bit of dirt in it. And he said, Mommy, Daddy, I have a pumpkin seed. I want to make a pumpkin. It was so cute. So we put the little cup on the windowsill, right, to give it some light. And Nolan was so diligent with his little cup of water. He watered the pumpkin plant and it grew. And, I got to be honest, I wasn't a big believer in the pumpkin plant at first, right? But it grew and grew until it grew over the sides of the cup. And we weren't going to stop there. So we brought it outside and put it kind of in the back corner of the house out of the way, put it in some good soil where it would get sunlight. Nolan continued to be diligent about watering it. And now when it rained, it got a lot of water and it grew and grew and grew until, I kid you not, when this thing was done growing, it had 3 vines that were over 20 feet long each. It was crazy. It was growing up the side of the house, up the side of the grill, into the yard. I had to mow around it. It was wild. And my son Nolan was so proud of his big pumpkin plant. And they gave us some pumpkins. They were kind of squishy because we didn't know what we were doing. But how cool is that? Right? What happened? How did that transformation take place? I think we get desensitized to this incredible growth and transformation that happens in living things. And Jesus often uses parables and stories of seeds and soil and plants and fruit to try to communicate something to us about how we are designed to grow, to become something, right? Now, what I find fascinating about a seed is that it has a DNA, right? It's the already but not yet, because that seed is not yet a plant or a pumpkin, right? But it will be. Inside of it, it has that DNA. And you and I are the already but not yet. We have a divine DNA, who we were made to be from the very beginning. Okay. And that plant will become a pumpkin plant. It can't become an apple tree. It can't become anything else, better or worse. It just is what it is. And no matter what stage it's at, whether it's still just the seed or a little shoot or leaves or vines or pumpkins, right? The DNA stays the same. It courses through the whole thing. It gives it what it needs and direction to where to go, but it stays the same. It doesn't change, right? That's pretty amazing. That is where you and I are the already but not yet. There are places in our lives where we're still just a little seed, but we have that DNA, that divine DNA that says this is who you will become, and you will, right? And so the roots go down and the shoots go up when we plant that seed. Okay. And for our analogy, what we're looking at is becoming deeply rooted and anchored in love, the Bible says. Right? Now, what was our definition or idea of love? An emphatic and beautiful and powerful, delighting yes to you. From God to your heart, something that you can receive, and a yes to ourselves to agree, to align with that yes, and maybe a few people around us to be able to affirm that, not give us validation, but affirmation to say, yes, that's already true, right? Okay, that is what we become deeply rooted in. And a root system, right, keeps the plant from being swept away by wind, by erosion, by water, anything else. Okay, so it keeps us grounded in life, our identity, who we really are in God, and all that, right? But the other thing a root system does that's incredible, right, is it's the roots that sucks up the water and the nutrients and everything that plant needs. Okay. And so it gets its source of life. And this is the connection point between us and God, is knowing who we are and knowing who God is. Connect, and it makes that connection happen. It's like plugging something into the wall. You may have had this experience where your heart comes alive. You get passionate about something, right? You light up. Something happens and something changes for you, and we can't quite put our finger on it, but somehow now I'm energized. What just happened? Well, what just happened is the raw material, right? What came with the original packaging of you just got touched, just got plugged in, just got connected with your source of life, right? From God and from love and life and who you are, now overflows into the world in incredible ways. How did that happen? Right? It is a root system. Be deeply rooted and anchored in love and identity and who you are. Right? The roots go down and the shoots go up, and the shoot, right, is what we can see. And then there's a leaf, and where there was a leaf, now there's three leaves, and where there was just a little vine, now there's three big vines, and now there's pumpkins, and on and on. How did that happen? That's transformation, right? And so identity informs transformation. That's how they work together, right? Identity informs transformation. Okay, we can do a lot. I mean, you go anywhere today and somebody's got 3 steps for this and 10 steps for that, and what you should do and what you have to do and what you should pay for and everything else. But if you don't know, have some idea of where you're headed, of who you are, what you're trying to get to, right? Then what are you transforming into? Right? It's already written into you, that divine DNA. And so the identity informs our transformation, our growth to become who and what we were made to be, right? And so transformation will happen. That's part of the divine DNA as well in living things, is that we will become, we will mature, we will grow if we have an environment that's good for growth. And like I said before, some of us have had unhealthy environments for growth. All of us have at some points, right? Toxic environments for growth. It's not that you can't do it, you can't get unstuck, you can't get healed. It's that we haven't had healthy places to do it sometimes. Okay, and other reasons too, but that's the main one. And so we're creating safe places. The secret of gardening, and I'm not a big gardener, so I probably shouldn't be giving out, secrets, but the secret of gardening is that there's not a gardener in the world that makes anything grow, right? The gardener comes alongside the growth that's already happening, right? It's already happening. It creates the environment, cultivates the environment. It doesn't make anything grow. The growth is already designed. It's already built in for you, for me, right? And so there is a way to cultivate transformation, right? There's 3 things. I'm not going to get deep into them right now. Okay. But those 3 things are healing, they are training, and they are growth, right? Healing, training, growth. Those 3 things allow transformation to happen in our life. Okay. And that's what we're after. So the work, as we said, is uncovering, creating space for the identity to deepen and the transformation to go up. Okay. Now, at this point, I want to let you know that I want to tell you more about transformation, but we just don't have time in this workshop. And so on June 3rd, we're going to host another virtual workshop all about transformation. Okay, it's called Life in the Training Circle, and it's how to get real, authentic, irreversible life change, especially in the places we feel stuck or imprisoned. Okay, so tune into that. You'll see links to sign up and all that too. All right. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to break up into our breakout groups, okay? Because we do want to understand that we're not on this journey alone, right? We are together, and we may not know each other. We don't have to be best friends, but we got to know that we're in this life together and doing this kind of work of identity and transformation, right? Like-hearted and like-minded people on the same type of journey. So we're going to break up into some groups and we're just going to share a little bit. I've got 3 questions for all of us to answer, right? And we'll take some time for each of us to do that. So basically, the first one is just for us to get to know you a little bit, your name and your location, right? Where do you live? And you can share a job or a hobby, some things you like, that kind of thing. And then share a high and a low, right? And a high just means something exciting, something good, something that you're excited about or going well. And then a low, something that is a bit more of a struggle, and that you're trying to work through or whatnot, right? Number 2 is the question is, what is your I'm only enough if? I'm only enough if, right? And you may think back to your childhood. It may be more recent, maybe something you've dealt with or not, but what are the things that you're sometimes tempted to make into that carrot, that validation that I have to get, I have to earn? Because we all have them, right? And so if you haven't done much of this work, it's okay if your answer is I don't know, right? That's always okay. But I encourage you to think about that and share what you can. And number 3 is, what is your journey of identity? Right? How did you learn incorrectly sometimes about who you are, and how have you been recovering it, and how can you recover? Right? So we don't have time to get into your full story or anything like that, but just share what you can. So let me give some guidelines for our breakout groups. Okay, we're all in this to create a safe place to share and listen. All right, so we want to do that together. So this isn't a place to counsel or coach or teach or preach. And this can be hard for me too, because I'm a coach and I love helping people and give guidance and all that, but this is not the place for that. Unsolicited advice is not welcome here. We want it to be a safe place. So if you want to respond to someone, that's a beautiful thing, and your response can be of empathy and encouragement. Empathy and encouragement, right? And if you want to ask a question, don't make it a leading question, just make it a question of curiosity. Um, right. And when you share, we're looking for a healthy vulnerability, not an overshare, but not super shallow either. We're going to share what we feel comfortable sharing. Okay. So we're going to take a 5-minute break now. And then when you come back from that 5-minute break, we're going to have 45 minutes for our breakout groups. Everybody go around and share, and please be brave and somebody get us started. Dive right in. And then after that group, and the Zoom will break you up into groups automatically. And after that 45 minutes, we'll all come back into the larger group. And please tune back in, because we're going to give practical applications and practices and really, kind of hit it home, and we can make this information into transformation if you're willing to take some of these steps. Okay. So we're going to take our 5-minute break, and then, yeah, we're going to dive into these groups. Thanks. again, thank you all for participating and connecting in your groups. We're going to get into our practical applications here, a few things that you can apply, try out in your own life, practice in your own life. The first one is something we already did in our time here. At the very beginning, I asked you to dream with me about the idea and the reality of your true self, your glory, Eden. What is it like to be fully healed and fully free? So that we get this idea, if we get this vision of what it is, and it, of course, won't look exactly what we think, like what we think, because we can't have that clarity. But if we can have something that we're going after, it's so important, and it's just good and gives us hope and desire for it when we talk about who is my true self? Who did God create me to be? So finding a few people, there's not, so many people out there in the world that you can have that conversation with, but a few people that you can have those conversations with, right? If you already have solitude time or alone time by yourself or with God, you can once in a while just have that as a topic, as an idea of, what you're spending time on, meditating on, thinking about. Who was I created to be? What does that actually look like? Right. And it stirs something and it allows us to get a vision for that. And again, identity informs our transformation. So we can start moving towards that. All right. Number two is we want to learn how to align how we view ourselves with how God views us. Okay. Align how we view ourselves with how God views us. Henry Nouwen has this great quote from his book, Life of the Beloved, which, by the way, is a great book. If you haven't read it, it's a good place to start wondering about who I am. And am I beloved? Am I loved? Am I accepted? Am I valued? Henry Nouwen says, self-rejection is the greatest enemy of the spiritual life because it contradicts the sacred voice that calls us the beloved. Being the beloved expresses the core truth of our existence. Now, I don't know about you, but there's some quotes that I have to wrestle with for a little while and argue with before it really sinks in. And this was one of those because I could think of a lot of things that are an enemy of a spiritual life. And really, self-rejection, is that what the greatest enemy is of the spiritual life? But it makes sense when it is because it contradicts the sacred voice that calls us the beloved. We contradict God. Okay, so first off, if we want to align how we view ourselves with God, align how we view ourselves with how God views us, then we would have to see God as good and loving. We'd have to have a clear understanding of who God is, right? Well, the image I was given of God when I was young is kind of God's in the back with his arms folded, kind of brows furrowed, kind of waiting for me to screw up. And that's not a God that I really want to get that close to. I'll try to do the right thing for him, right? Motivated sometimes by fear, but is it loving? Is it kind? Is it generous? Is it, approachable? And so, learning, okay, God, and allowing God to reveal himself, who are you really to me? What does that look like? And then if you have that, then you can begin to align. So maybe you have this experience where for me, for my wife and I, we've been married for almost 17 years now. And so my wife will sometimes say to me, hey, Matthew, you look good. And most times I'm like, yeah, thanks. I do. I'm a pretty confident guy. But once in a great while, I'll have this moment of, I don't know if she really believes that I look good. And she kind of has to say that, right? It's been 17 years and, kind of, but it's such a weird response, right? I may even say out loud, yeah, right. What are you talking about? Okay. Because I have, I have an insecurity. I have a belief that's different than hers, right? It's such a strange response because she's not asking for my opinion. She's giving me hers and creating a moment of connection and love and encouragement, and I'm saying no to it, right? I'm saying no to it. And this is what we do with God because we have a belief that's different than what God believes in who we are, right? And so we're saying no, we put up the wall. So God, I believe, has been saying to you from the beginning, I love you, you are loved. An emphatic, beautiful, powerful yes to you. And we say no. We say, I'm not so sure. We say, yeah, but did you see what I did? We say, yeah, but here's the list of all the things I've screwed up. We say, yeah, but if I only do these things, then I'll get it. Right. And we block it. We put up the walls, right? Because we don't believe. And so the work is not to get it from God as much. He's already giving it. He's been giving it from the beginning. It's actually to begin to say it for ourselves. Not pride, not selfishness, not making ourselves better than we really are or any worse, right? But just saying what's true. I am loved. I am good. I am kind. I'm working on it, right? The core of who I am is enough, right? And so the practice is what's called empathy self-talk, right? And you may have heard of self-talk and negative self-talk, right? Where we kind of beat ourselves up, yell at ourselves, I'm stupid, I'm an idiot, I can't believe I did that, right? And I first heard that from John Eldredge years ago, and he said, stop it, which is good. That's a good first step. Don't do that anymore, right? But we want to replace it now. Step two is replacing the negative self-talk actually with positive self-talk. We can begin to speak to ourselves the way God has been speaking to us from the very beginning, right? So if we screw something up, we can say self. I don't do this when anyone else is around because they look at me weird, or that would be weird. But to myself, I'll say, hey, Matthew, it's okay. I know that was hard. I know that was difficult, right? But we screwed up and we can repair it. We can recover. It's going to be okay. Instead of you idiot, what's your problem? Or just silence, just fear, right? And so if we do something well, we can say, hey, way to go. Good job. I know you tried really hard and you did it, right? You were brave, you were courageous. And so this is the 1-2 punch of encouragement and empathy and encouragement, right? Empathy is, I see you, I understand, I'm here for you. We can do that for ourselves, right? There's this vulnerable young part of us that needs to hear you're okay, you're loved, you're enough. And the adult, grown up, more mature part of us with God is speaking to that young part. You are okay. You're loved, right? And I get it. We're in this together. And then encouragement, you're strong, you're smart, you're capable. So let's go. And sometimes it's even a kick in the butt, right? Like John just said, hey, let's do more. Let's go after it. Let's get going, right? And let's stop procrastinating and make something happen. But it's a kind words. It's the way it's offered is kind, sometimes firm, but kind. And that starts to align with what God's saying. It's actually loving ourselves, which, by the way, reminder, is a part of the greatest commandments, right? Love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love others as you love yourself. It's right there too. Okay. So we're learning to love ourselves. We have permission to do that. Okay. So that's number two, right? Is align how we view ourselves with how God views us through empathy, self-talk. And finally, number three are mantras. So it takes approximately 23 separate instances of something to start changing the neural pathways of our brain, the patterns, the continuation of a rhythm that we just keep doing over and over. You want to change something, you've got to create a new pattern, a new way. And some of those are actually neuro highways, neural pathways that are highways, and they take even longer and more time, right, to change. Okay, so it takes about 23 times. So we need something new, even if it's just words or reminders, right, of who we are. So sometimes I have my clients in my coaching world, I have them write a manifesto, right? This is who I am. And sometimes that's paragraphs long, and it's something that they declare. And it's who I want to be, aspire to be, but know that I actually already am that, the already but not yet. So I want to remind myself of that. And then what actions and behaviors, thoughts and feelings and work that I have to do to step into it, right? The other things that we can do are short, sweet, graphic quotes or quotes that remind us of who we are. So on the webpage link that I sent you guys with the Zoom link, and you'll also get this again in email form, you can go to that link and it has a bunch of resources. Okay, so if you haven't looked at that, there's a bunch of great stuff there. And one of these things that's there are graphic quotes, which just means there's a quote with a graphic behind it, looks nice. But what it's meant to do is be simple and sweet and something that you put up somewhere. You can print it out, you can put it on your computer, you can write it on a post-it note to remind yourself over and over, I am broken and beloved, right? Because we got to be honest, we are broken, but that's okay. We're still loved and beloved in the midst of our brokenness. What a relief, right? And our identity is as beloved. Okay. And you can read that, you can be reminded of that over and over. Or Brene Brown's I am imperfect and enough. Okay. All right. So those are our three practical takeaways. Dream and talk about and think about the reality of your true self. Align how we view ourselves with how God views us. And finally, the mantras that we can say over and over. Again, check out that webpage and you'll see it in the upcoming website that will also have the recording of this workshop. So you can have that as well if you want to see it again or hear certain parts again. So look for that in your email inbox. So as we wrap up, to keep this momentum going and kind of part two, if you will, we'll dive further into transformation. Today we talk more about identity. We're going to talk about transformation on June 3rd. We're hosting that other virtual workshop all about transformation, life, and the training circle, how to get real, authentic, irreversible life change, especially in the places that we feel stuck or imprisoned. You'll get emails with the link to sign up, and we'll continue to learn to live free together. So again, thank you so much for being here. It is so honoring and just really grateful that you're here. Let me pray for us, and then we'll be done with our time for today. Okay. Well, God, we are grateful for your goodness and for your love, and just so grateful for this time and these folks that have been on this virtual workshop that showed up, that desire to learn and grow and heal and to become the people that we were created to be from the very beginning. And just the idea, just the thought, just the hope that that could be true is inspiring. But to see that it actually could, to see it in my life and see it in other people's lives and hopefully in their lives too, we know we can't get full healing on this side of heaven, but we can get a lot. And how much could we get? Let's find out. And so, God, we pray for that invitation and that hope and that desire to go after these things and the clarity to understand for each of these folks what is their next step, because it's different for everybody. Well, who is their identity? Who did you create them to be? What did you mean when you meant them? And are who they are good, that they could be reminded of that, and then how to step into that, right? Align how we are with who we are. So God, we seal this time in your name, your goodness, your love, your care and kingdom. Amen. Amen. Awesome, folks. Well, thanks so much. You guys have a great rest of your evening, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. See ya. Mhm.